In this lesson, we're going to take a look at creating custom reports in a little bit more detail. And we're going to start out by customizing a very common report, and that is the project overview report. And all reports in Project can be highly customized and completely tailored to your needs, your branding colors, and whatever guidelines you've been given. So let's click on the Report tab. And we'll go to Dashboards, and this is the report we want to load up, Project Overview. Now, once again, notice that we have a few different things on here, and I can already see we need to do some tidying up because we have certain things overlapping, and currently this report doesn't look too good. Now, the first thing to note here is the color scheme in use. And these colors are being generated by the theme that I have in use, which is currently just the standard Office theme. Now, I have that set as my default, so if you have something else set as your default theme, then your colors might not look exactly the same as mine do here. Now, I don't particularly like this theme, so I'm going to immediately change it to Facet, so we get a completely different color scheme. And I'm also going to turn on my page breaks from the page setup group so I can see exactly where that boundary is, and I can ensure that I'm designing within the page that's going to be printed. Now, the first thing I'm going to do here is click in this title area, Project Overview. And now this is where I feel that these reports haven't been designed too well, because you can see immediately that the text box that contains this heading actually overlaps the text next to it. So if I was going to start applying things like background colors, that's going to cover up the first part of this percentage complete paragraph. So let's change this. We're just going to drag this little text box in so that it doesn't overlap. Now, before I go any further, I'm going to save a copy of this report, because what I don't want to do is overwrite the Project Overview report template. So we're going to go up to Manage, and we're going to choose Rename Report. And I'm just going to call this my initials, Project Overview, and click on OK. So now we effectively have two copies of this report, the original and the one that we're working on. So let's do a little bit more formatting to this header. I'm going to right click and go to Paragraph, and I'm going to change the alignment to centered. And I'm also going to change the vertical alignment, because you can see currently it's sitting towards the bottom of this text box. So if we right click and go into Format Shape and Text Options, we can then select Text Box, and we can change the vertical alignment. So let's change it to middle, and you can see that just moves that up. Now, if we take a look underneath, you can see that we have these dates in here, and I really dislike the way that these look. Now, you might be wondering, where is the report getting this information from? Well, if you think about our project, where do we have the start and finish dates of the project? We have them in that project summary task, that very top level task that's going to show us our start and our finish dates. So if we click on the start date just here, one other important thing to know is that this is effectively in its own table. How do I know that? Well, if we click on it and check out our contextual ribbons, you can see that we now have access to the table design ribbon. So both of these dates are housed effectively in a one row, one column table. Now, it's getting its information from the field list that we have over on the right-hand side. And I'm just going to pick up this field list, drag it over here so it's a bit closer to what we're working with. And as I said, this reminds me a lot of the field list when we're working with pivot tables in Excel. Now, we have various different checkboxes. We can check different fields. We're going to ignore this for the time being and go straight down to these options at the bottom. Because if you take a look at outline level, you can see it's using the project summary task to get its information. The same with this one over here. It's getting the finish date and time from the project summary task. Now, I'm going to dock this field list back over, because we're going to do a little bit of formatting here, because this really doesn't look too great. So let's go to task, and let's take the font size down a little bit, and we're going to make this quite a bit smaller. So let's take it down to 10 and see what that looks like first of all. And I'm going to drag this over here. And let's drag this one out, give it a little bit more room, and we're going to position that on the left-hand side. Now, notice here we have this little dash in its own little text box. So I'm going to move that so that it's in between. So that looks a little bit neater. And if you want to change the font color, you can see that currently these are in a light gray. We can right click and go into Format Shape. We can click on text options at the top here, and then we can choose a text fill. So you can see currently it's filled with this light grey colour. So if you wanted to change that to something else, so maybe I wanted to change it to a dark green colour, I could definitely do that from there. Now I'm going to keep this on light grey. Now let's move down to this next little box down here. So again, this is information that's contained within a table because we have the table design ribbon. And you can see the top row of this table houses percentage complete, and then the bottom row houses the actual percentage. And once again, if we click where it says 56% and take a look at our field list, we can see the field that it's using selected, percentage complete, and it's using that project summary task again. Now we're going to do a little bit of formatting here. I'm going to drag this out so that it's the same width as everything above. Let's move it up a little bit. And if I want to change the color scheme that we're using, I can go to table design and I could choose one of these different table styles. So maybe I want it to look like that. Maybe I want something completely different. We could go for something like that. Now I think I'm going to go for, let's go for that one, this nice yellow style. Now the next item on this report is our milestones table. And once again, we might want to do a little bit of jigging around when it comes to the width of these text boxes. Maybe I want to move this up. I could change the font. I can do whatever I like. But we're going to focus on the little table underneath. And once again, we're just going to drag this in so it's the same width. Now, if we click on this table and take a look at the field list, and once again, I'm going to drag this field list over here, you can see the fields that are in use in this table. So you can see we have the name field in use, and we also have the finish field. So if we scroll down, we should find that that is also selected. Now we have a filter applied to this table, and that filter is upcoming milestones. And you can see we have lots of different filters that we can apply depending on the information that we want to display. So we're filtering for upcoming milestones. We don't have any grouping applied, and we're filtering all subtasks. So that's how we actually get that information into the table. And it might be here that we want to change the table style again. So maybe I want this to look slightly different from everything else. Let's make that orange. Now, if you want to see exactly how this report is pulling this information through, what you can do is jump back to Gantt chart view. We can go to the View tab, Filter, More Filters, and we simply need to find the filter that was in use in the report. And that filter was upcoming milestones. Now, if we edit this, you can see exactly what that filter is doing. So it's going to take a look at the whole project. It's going to look for milestones. So it says here, milestone equals yes. And then it's going to filter for percentage of work complete that does not equal 100%. So it's basically looking at the milestones, it's then finding all of the milestones which aren't 100% complete, and it's pulling that information into the report. So that is how that filter is built to produce the report that we're looking at. Let's jump back to our report. And now I can go back to Recent and DA Project Overview to get back there quickly. Now let's deal with this other table at the bottom, so where we have late tasks. Again, if we click on the table and take a look at the field list, you can see right at the bottom, the filter that we have applied here is late tasks, and it's being applied to all subtasks. And you can see that we have 6 different fields in this table, and you can see those selected in the field list above. So you can probably see how easy it is to construct your own tables. You could insert a table, add your field, and then apply whatever filter you need to add. Now I'm going to do a little bit of jigging around here. I'm going to resize some of these columns and give that last column just a little bit more room. I'm going to change the table design to this orange so it matches the other table. Now another thing you can do here with these fields, you can see all of the fields that are selected in that field list on the right hand side. Now if I want to delete certain fields, I can simply just deselect them. So if I deselect duration, it disappears from the table. Select it again, and it appears, but it appears at the end. Now, if you want to reorganize these, so maybe I want to have duration after finish, we can simply select it and drag it up to its new position to rearrange the order of those fields. Now, the final thing to deal with here is this chart above. Now, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to drag this out so that it matches the width of the table below. And if we click on the chart again and look in the field list, we can see the fields that are in play just here. So this is showing the percentage complete of all top level tasks. And you can see here we have outline level 1. The filter applied is active tasks. Now, another thing to note with this particular chart is if we click on these top level tasks, these are what we refer to as category variables. And if you take a look over in the field list, you can see at the top it says select category, and currently we have name displayed. So it's showing me the name of all of those level 1 tasks. But if I wanted to, I could click the drop down and change it to something else. So maybe I just want to display the ID number of those tasks instead. And you can see that it changes it in the chart. Now I'm going to stick with name. Now, when it comes to charts, there's loads of different styling options that we have. If you click on the chart, notice that over on the right-hand side, we have these 3 buttons, which allow us to add or remove different chart elements. We can change the style and the color of the chart, and we can also apply filters from here as well. And each chart has many different elements. So for example, if I click on the vertical axes, it's that I'm changing the formatting options for. And if you've ever used charts in other Microsoft applications, then most of this is fairly standard. Remember, we can also use the chart design ribbon to do things like change colors, change styles, change the layout, so on and so forth. So let's go to change colors, and I'm going to change this to something else from my color palette. Let's stick with green for the time being. I might decide to change that a bit later on. So that is it for now. We're going to continue on talking about customizing reports in the next lesson. In the previous lesson, we started to make changes to the project overview report. And since that lesson, I've made a couple of little changes to the chart that you can see just here. Now, all I've done is I have gone to the chart design tab, and I've actually changed the chart style. So we're now using this chart style just here, style 16. I also removed the grid lines from this chart so it has a cleaner look. And to remove grid lines, you simply just click on them and press the delete key on your keyboard. So I've made those couple of minor changes. Let's give it a quick save, and we're now ready to talk more about styling. And I want to start out by talking a little bit more about themes, because this concept of themes is a really important concept to get straight in your mind. Now, we saw earlier that we can change the overall theme of our report by jumping up to the Report Design tab and changing the theme. And we have numerous different theme templates that we can use in here. Now, currently we have the facet theme applied. Now, the good thing about these themes is that they are consistent across all Microsoft applications. So if you're trying to get your report in Project to have the same colors, the same styling as something you've created in an Excel spreadsheet, then the good news is that these themes are exactly the same. So you would just need to choose the same theme in both applications to get that consistent look and feel. Now, when you do select a theme in Project, what you basically get is a set of colors, fonts, and effects. And as I mentioned, you don't necessarily have to stick with the colors that the theme comes with. So if you like the facet theme in general, but maybe you don't like the color scheme that it uses by default, you can simply select a different palette from the drop-down. The same thing applies to fonts. You can choose different fonts to use, and the same thing applies to effects. Now, as soon as you start to make changes to the default colors, fonts, and effects in a theme, you're basically creating your own custom theme. And if you want to reuse that theme, then you can save the current theme at the bottom just here. So if I wanted to change this color palette to something else, so let's go for this, I could now save current theme, give it a name. Now, I already have a DA custom theme in here, so we'll just call this DA custom theme 2. Click on save, and now when you go back to the themes drop down, you can see your custom theme up here at the top, and you can see that I have 3 custom themes in here. Now, if we click the colors drop down again and go to customize colors at the bottom, this is going to show you all of the colors in use in this palette. So these make up your theme colors, and you can see that these theme colors are assigned to different things within the theme. So for example, text background dark 1, text background light 1, so on and so forth. We have accent 1, accent 2, accent 3, and of course we can modify any of these by choosing different colors from the color palette. Now, just by taking a look at these theme colors, I can see that the green one here, accent 3, that's probably what we have applied to this table in the report. Now, these labels for these theme colors are standard across all themes. So for example, if I were to select a different theme, so let's just go for something else, go into colors and customize colors, you can see that whilst the colors are different, the label for those colors is exactly the same. So what it means is if I were to change the color here for accent 2 to something completely different, so let's go for pink color, it's going to change it for accent 2 across themes where this color scheme is in use. Now I'm going to put my theme back to my new custom theme that I created. So let's select this table at the top. I'm going to click in that header row of the table where it says percentage complete. And let's go to the table design ribbon. And in the table styles group, this is where I can change the shading. So notice that the colors are divided into theme colors and standard colors. So what you're going to see in this first palette at the top are all of the colors that are part of the theme that you're using. And you can see the one that's currently in use in this table is highlighted in red. It's this one just here. Now notice when I hover over it, we have that label Accent 3. If I hover over the next one, Accent 2, Accent 1, so on and so forth. So that correlates to what we were just looking at in the Customize Colors table. Now, if I were to change the color of this header to a different theme color, so let's go for blue, and then I was to change the overall theme, you can see that the color of that header changes to match the new theme that I've selected. Now check this out. If we go back to our custom theme where we still have this blue, this time I'm going to change the shading to just a standard color. So I'm not going to use one of the theme colors. Now let's choose something really bright so it stands out. We're going to go for a red. Now check out what happens when I change the theme. Everything else changes except that header, that's staying on red. And that's the difference between theme colors and standard colors. If you're using theme colors in your report, they will all update depending on the theme that you've chosen. If you're using standard colors, they won't. So just bear that in mind when you're designing your reports. Now I'm going to set this back to my custom theme, and we're also going to change the shading back to olive green. Now one thing I don't particularly like in this report is the font that's in use here. So if I go to task, I can see it's using Trebuchet MS. Now I don't particularly like that. I'm not going to change these elements individually. I'm going to modify the theme. So again, let's go to report design, and I'm going to modify the fonts in use. So let's try this one. Let's see what Segoe UI looks like. I actually really like that, so I think I'm going to use that one. So once again, I've customized this theme. If I want to make that permanently a part of my theme, I can choose to save the current theme, and I could overwrite the theme that I created a few minutes ago. So let's select DA Custom Theme 2, click on Save. Yes, I want to replace it. And we now have our theme saved and ready to select. Final thing I'm going to do here is I'm actually going to make these headings bold so that they stand out a little bit. And I'm just using the options on the task ribbon to do this. Now I'm pretty happy with how this report is looking. Let's just move that up very slightly. But compared to what we started with, this is looking really nice. I have a few more pointers to give you when it comes to report design, so I will see you in the next lesson. In the previous few lessons, we've seen how we can customize a project overview report using themes, colors, fonts, and effects. And what we're going to concentrate on in this lesson is how we can create or build a new report from scratch. And doing this is also going to give us the chance to take a look at some of the elements that we can add into a report that we haven't yet taken a look at. So if we go to the report tab, in the View Reports group, we have a new report drop-down. Now we have 4 different templates that we can select in here. And really, if I'm honest with you, the difference between these 4 is negligible. If you choose the chart template, for example, it's just going to create a blank report, but it's going to have a single chart in it. So if you know ahead of time before you create the report, you know you're going to need a chart, then this might be one that you want to select. The same thing applies with table. If you know you want a table in your report, you could start with this, and it just means you don't have to add it manually, or you could start from a blank. Now we're going to talk about comparison reports later on. In this lesson, we're going to select the chart option. Now we need to give this report a name, so I'm just going to call this DA, let's just call it Test Report 1, and click on OK. So you can see what it's done there. It's inserted one single chart with some default fields selected to display data. And then we also have this heading at the top. Remember that text box. Now, if we click on the chart and jump up to the chart design ribbon, you can see over at the end here, we can choose to change the chart type. So if we click on this, you can see currently we're using a clustered column chart, but there are lots of different variations of this clustered column chart that we could choose. For example, we could choose a stacked column instead, which is going to look like that. We could choose a 3D column, which is going to look like that. Now, in general, I wouldn't recommend 3D columns because they do make your data a little bit harder to read. So I always tend to stick with clustered column. Sometimes I'll use a stacked column. If we wanted a completely different style of report, maybe we want a line chart or a pie chart or a bar chart instead, we can simply select what we want from here and it's going to change the chart that we have in the report. Now we're going to stick with clustered column charts, so let's just click on OK. We also should already be aware of how we attach the data to a chart. If we take a look over in the field list, you can see that this chart is displaying 3 different pieces of information. It's showing actual work, which you can see by the legend, is the bar in blue. It's displaying remaining work, which is in orange, and work, which is in grey. So we have 3 series in this chart. We can see underneath it's filtering for active tasks, outline level 1. And if we want to customize this, display different fields, display different pieces of information, we can simply select and deselect the checkboxes in the fields list. So we should be reasonably familiar with that up until this point. So all of that is fairly straightforward. Let's take a look at some of the other things we can add to a report that we haven't looked at as yet. So if we jump up to the report design ribbon again and into the insert group, you can see that we can add an image or images to our report. So let's click on images. And I've just got a little image saved off here of the Simon Says It logo. So let's click on insert. There he is. And as you might expect, this works the same as in other Microsoft applications. I could resize him simply by dragging those handles in and out. I can move him over to here. And if I want to format this picture, notice that when we're clicked on the image, we now get a picture format contextual ribbon at the top where we can make changes to this picture. We could also right-click and open up the Format Picture menu, which opens up a whole host of other options that we can use to apply changes to this particular image. Now, something else that's worth knowing about is the Z order of elements in your report. So you can see currently this little image is overlapping the chart underneath. And sometimes this gives quite a nice effect, so you might find that you do have overlapping objects. Now currently this image is sitting on top of the chart. So the Simon Says It logo is basically at the front. If you think of this as in different layers, we have the logo at the front, we then have the chart sitting behind. Now if I wanted to change this Z order, we have some options available on the picture format ribbon in order to do that. So in the Arrange group, I have Bring Forward and Send Backward. So if I wanted the Simon Says It logo to be behind the chart, I could click the drop down and I can choose Send Backwards, which is going to send it back 1 layer, or I could choose Send to Back, which is going to send it behind everything that we have in the report. So I'm going to choose Send to Back, and you can see what that looks like. We now have the chart that's overlapping the image. Now that doesn't look particularly great, so I'm just going to Control Z to bring that to the front again. So just remember that when it comes to the order of objects in your report. So adding images, really simple. What about shapes? Well, if we go up to the shapes drop down, it's going to open up the shapes gallery and we can select any of the shapes from here. So I'm just going to select an arrow. Notice my cursor changes to a crosshair and I can then draw this arrow and be very specific about the size of this arrow. So maybe I want it to look something like that. I can reposition it, and then I have a shape format contextual ribbon as well. So I could choose a shape style to apply, and remember, all of the colors you're seeing in here are based off of the theme that you currently have selected. So I have selected just the default Office theme. I'm actually going to go in and change that. So let's go to Report Design. Let's change the theme, and I'm going to change it to my custom theme. And now I should get a different set of colors, which I do. And I'm going to go for this shape style for the arrow. So you have tons of formatting options on the shape format ribbon. And again, if you right click and go into format shape, you have a whole heap of other formatting options as well. Now, one important thing here, if we go up to the Report Design tab and click on Page Breaks, you can see where that page is going to break if we were to print. Now currently the arrow is kind of hanging off of the end and everything is very much over on the right hand side. So when I print this report, it's not going to look particularly good. So what I might want to do here is just select everything. So I can select the header, hold down the Shift key, select the image, select the chart, and also select the arrow. And then we can use our arrow keys to move everything over, or we can simply drag everything over. Now, it doesn't look like I selected the header, so let's move that one over as well manually. The final thing just to take a quick look at here is adding a table into our report. So once again, up on the Insert tab, we can click on Table. It's going to add the standard default table showing standard default information. We've already seen how we can customize this by changing the fields that we're using in the table. We know how we can rearrange the columns or even delete columns entirely. And we've seen how we can change the design, the look and feel of our table by choosing a completely different table style. So those are just a few additional elements when it comes to customizing your report. I hope you can see how simple this is to build a really attractive looking custom report from scratch.
Are you happy with this training? Make sure to subscribe for more great content. Visit the Simon Says It channel, explore our videos and training sessions, and decide what you want to learn next.